Captain Joseph Merrill, United States Army, World War II. Joe's one of my only battalion surgeons of all the videos I've done. He served in World War II, was born in 1918, went into the military in 1944 as a battalion surgeon, as a first lieutenant, came out as a captain. He was with the 99th Infantry Division. Folks, if you know your history, they were well known for the Battle of the Bulge. He also was involved with the crossing of the Rhine at Remagen. So just a great story here. I'm really excited. I've got Army medics, I've got Navy corpsmen, and those who've nurses, you know, throughout World War II and Vietnam, but not many battalion surgeons. I mean, I know Joe hold back, and he probably forgot a lot, but he was almost 96 when I interviewed him in 2014. It was July 23rd here in Grand Junction, Colorado, 10 years ago. Joe passed away, almost made it to 99, just a few days before his 99th birthday. One of my older veterans, but boy, he did remember a lot, but I think he held back some of the blood and guts, which I'm not after. If you know me, I'm not after the blood and guts of war. I'm after the personal side of how it changed these young men and women, how they came home, transitioned back into society. But I'm happy, I'm really excited to share Joe's story with you. He also went on to the end of the war with the 13th Armored Division as a battalion surgeon. So he performed one of the first open heart surgeries, chest surgeries here in Grand Junction, Colorado. I think it was the first one in 1951. So just a really renowned man for his medical expertise and his surgical skills. I think I would want him to operate on me if I had to have heart surgery or something of that along those lines. But God bless him. He's been gone 10 years now, and his story's been in my archives. And I want to thank Kurt Kornchuk, William Wright, and Jacqueline Button for making it possible for you to hear Joe's story today. Thank you, gentlemen and lady. Gentlemen and lady, thank you for your support of my work. And I know you've been waiting for a story. This is your story, and you're allowing me to continue my work. I'm so grateful to all three of you for your devotion to our country, our veterans, and to help me with this project. So I say God bless you. Thank you. Folks, if you'd like to become a sponsor or donate to my work, there's information in the video description of all my videos and in the comment section. I ask that you would pause, take a moment, look at that link, that information. Won't take long, won't take much of your time. KVOH, Voices of History Radio, is going strong 24 hours a day. It's like a supplement to this channel, I guess. The main thing is the history and why we're free. And that's what's contained in all these stories, folks, on the YouTube channel here and on the radio station. And it's just been a blessing to bring these stories to you. Just came back from Arizona, had a successful week of interviews down there. Got to visit one of my only surviving World War II veterans, Larry Meyer, almost 101 now. Met him at a senior living center there in Peoria, Arizona before I left last Friday. And what a blessing. I'll share a little interview I took with my iPhone maybe with you. But he's featured on my channel here, Larry Meyer. He's 147th Combat Engineer Battalion, World War II, D-Day, H-Hour. And it was just a blessing to visit with him. So, but the Vietnam veterans I interviewed last week, I interviewed a World War II veteran, a Korea and Vietnam veteran, three-war veteran. That Richard Machad, it was just where he was a Top Gun pilot in Vietnam. Oh my gosh, just incredible stories. Re-interviewed Jerry, did a second interview with Jerry McNally, Ed Masterson, Mark Bartlett, and Terry Willman. So, I can't wait to share some of those stories with you. But folks, it'd be great to have your help with this work. It'd be a blessing. So, I think that's all I wanted to say. I think I got it all in, and I just thank you for watching these stories and sharing them with others. It's so important to get them into the hands of our young people. That's one of the big reasons why I'm producing these documentaries and these stories, is to educate our younger generation who were born in a free country. They don't know what it is to not be free. And that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing in that we take our freedoms for granted. And do we really appreciate what we have? And this channel, my radio station, is the real thing, and it tells the real story. So God bless you. Thank you for watching and listening, like I said, and sharing these videos. And I hope you enjoyed Joe Merrill's story. It's a good one. if I look over at my camera, don't let that bother you, okay? Because I'll be
Okay.
monitored. My monitor's over here. So, but
I should just kind
You-
of focus toward the
you
camera.
can look at me. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
look at me. First question. Well, how old are you, Joe?
95.
Did you ever think you'd be 95?
No.
How does that happen?
Well, I think it's because of a grandfather who lived to be 88. And because both my parents died in their 50s, but he lived to be 88, and I think I got some genes from him.
Okay.
And 2 months from now, I'll be 96, 22nd of September.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty good. For
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I don't know if there was a secret to that or whatever, but you're in good health.
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Father's Day weekend, I spent a couple of days in St. Mary's with some chest pain, and I'm taking cardiac rehab 3 days a week. Now I'm going to keep that up for a while. But I didn't really have a real heart attack. I had just apparently a spasm of coronary artery.
Are you able to diagnose yourself?
That's dangerous.
Is that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
They say a doctor treats himself as a fool for a patient, a damn fool for a doctor.
So you're 95. What year did you go in the military?
1st of January, 1944.
Were you drafted?
No. Well, I don't know. I guess I was. I just finished to medical school in March of 43 and finished internship at the end of December of 43. But when we went through physical examinations, all of the medical students were put into what they call the Medical Administrative Corps. And we stayed in that till we graduated. Then we became first lieutenants in the Medical Corps.
Did you have to go through boot camp?
Yeah,
Where?
6 weeks in near Abilene, Texas, Camp Barkley.
So you went in as an officer, or how'd that happen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go in as a first lieutenant. There were two other Dr. Merrills there at the time, one from California, one from Texas. In the old days, all the physicians went through Camp Carlisle in Pennsylvania, but during World War II, it was crowded, and I think we were the first bunch to go to Camp Barkley. I think there were 800 of us that were there, and we went through the, obstacle course and crawling under the fire and stuff,
So,
marches.
so when you went through your training, did you ever think you'd get in around combat someday? Did you think that was coming?
Oh well, I hadn't given it much thought, but I knew that my classification was general medical officer. I hadn't had any special training beyond internship. I knew I wouldn't be going into an Army hospital, and most of the other jobs are with combat units.
But were you trained for combat? I mean, there's the way you're trained. Were you trained under combat situations, or?
Well, yeah, in basic training.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were trained in those and went through the obstacle courses and where they shoot over you, you crawl. We did that.
Did you have to apply that training in real life at the Bulge or anywhere in your military career? I mean, when's the first time you treated a wounded soldier? Do you remember that?
Oh, let's see. It would have been we went into the line November the 11th, Armistice Day. I thought that was kind of odd. In 1944, in a little town called Krinkhout, Belgium, eastern Belgium, about 2 miles from the Siegfried line. And the first casualties we had were mainly guys that with trench foot. That was a big problem. In foxholes, there's water, cold, and people, they got bad things like that. But then the Bulge started on Saturday, the 15th or 16th of December, just about a month. And I don't remember the very first one I saw. I remember some of them that I saw during the Bulge. One of the worst ones I saw, I remember this officer was lying on the stretcher, and he had a blanket over him, and he didn't seem to be having much pain. But I turned back, both his legs were off right across here. He'd been hit by, the Germans had a gun they called the 88, which was real deadly. And he had a bottle of scotch he'd been swigging on, so he wasn't having much pain. But that's when we really started getting the real casualties.
Hold on just a second. Let me just light the stove a bit here. Mm-hmm. So did that man make it? Did he survive, or did he?
No, I don't know. See, I don't know if you know how infantry divisions are set up, or how they were in that day. An infantry division had about 15,000 men. It had 3 regiments, and each regiment had 3 battalions. The farthest to the front medical station was the battalion aid station, and they had 1 doctor and litter bearers, and mostly litter bearers besides that. And he was closest to the front. And then the next facility back was what they called a collecting company, and it was located in the town where the regimental headquarters was. A collecting company was commanded by a physician, and then there were 2 other physicians, and that's where I was, in a collecting company. Our job was to, if injury was such that we could patch them up and get them back in the line, that's what we did. If we couldn't, we tried to keep them alive and evacuate them. Then they go through what they call a clearing company, and that was in the same town as division headquarters. And after that, you got to the mobile hospitals and base hospitals. So, it wasn't, you weren't, people think, oh, that must have been a lot of experience in the Army. It really wasn't. You weren't even doing things like appendectomies, or, you were just trying to patch up what you could or keep them alive.
So you're a young man, you're in your 20s at this time, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, let's see, I was 20, I was born 18. I was 22 and 42, let's see.
You're probably 24?
25, I guess. In September of 44, I would have been 26, I guess, yeah.
Okay. So this paper that we saw, your vivid memory of the beginning of the Battle of the Bulge, can you tell me that? You heard the wind, you thought,
yeah.
Tell me that story.
Yeah.
Where you were and what you were doing.
Well, we were in this little town of Krinkelt, Belgium, and our aid station was right next to a big church. It was right across the street from us. Most of those little towns in Europe, if you've been there, first thing you see is a church spire sticking up, And I think the Germans probably were using that to aim at us when the Bulge started, because we had our aid station was in a school. It was right next to the church, and it was hit. So we had to move our stuff across the street into the basement of a brick house that had been the house of a priest. I remember on one end of the basement there was a huge pile of wine bottles. People we had are wounded in there. The Bulge started on Saturday, and on Sunday they got our road cut off in the back. We couldn't get our casualties out for a couple of days, and we had wounded and some dead guys in our station, and one German prisoner I remember described in there, 12-year-old boy, or looked like he'd about 12. By that time, Germany was really scraping the bottom of the barrel. Their manpower was really shot. But that was that night. It was on a Sunday night. I stepped out the back door about midnight, and somebody challenged me. I had no idea what the password was. But he said, "Better stay in there, Doc. There's Germans all over town." And we could hear the German Tiger tanks out on the road in front of our place. I thought we'd either be killed or captured, sure as shooting, but we didn't. And then they got a road open about a day later, and we got our casualties out. But I remember it was on a Saturday morning. Remember, we thought it was a wind going over, and it was actually German shells. That was when the Bulge really started. And then after they got that road open, we came back to a little town called Verviers, Belgium, and stayed there for quite a while until when the Bulge first started, the weather wasn't too good, so we didn't have a lot of air support. But that cleared up, and the bombers began to come in. And once we started going the other way, it was pretty fast. And I remember coming to the town of Aachen, and as you came in, they said, "Caution, falling walls." A lot of those towns had been incendiary bombs that hit in the roof of buildings and burned through and just left the walls standing. And so they were dangerous things. But once we started moving, things went pretty fast. We didn't really know how bad the situation was, I think. We could hear on the radio, we could get the German propaganda. And I remember somebody saying the only thing between the Germans and the English Channel were bakers and something else. But Germany was trying to, we were part of the First Army, and they were trying to split the First and Third Armies. That's where the point of the Bulge. The town of Malmedy, you've heard of that massacre. That Malmedy was located south and east of us. We were farther toward Germany than they were. But let's see.
Well, let me ask you a question. Were you around the Ardennes?
What?
The Ardennes?
Yeah, that's in the Ardennes forest.
Yeah.
Where we were. It's.
I heard there was real bad fighting there.
Yeah, it was. It was, and there'd been bad fighting there in World War I. There was the Ardennes is a thick forest in eastern Belgium, and actually, it was part of Germany before World War I, and the Allies took it from Germany, but the people who lived there, well, the town was named Krinkelt, which is a German word, and the people were German sympathizers. You could tell that. I don't know what the population of the town was, but it wasn't very big. But but if you get farther back, like to Verviers, the people spoke French, and they were. I remember when we came into the line, we were in convoy and trucks and so forth. We'd come to these Belgian towns, and people would be out on the street greeting us and waving. And we had one of our soldiers, his last name was Fricky. He was a German descent and spoke German. As we were going through this one town, we stopped, the convoy did, and there was a young woman standing there, obviously quite pregnant. And Fricky says, "Wie haben Sie so dick gewesen?" He says, "Mama, wie haben Sie so, Mama, how did you get so fat?" And the people all started laughing. But the Belgian people welcomed us, of course. But in Krunkelt, where we were, as I say, just a couple of miles from the Siegfried line, and they launched what they call buzz bombs. They were going mostly to the city of Liège, and they were low enough coming over so we could read everything on the bottom of them. And they decided to shoot one of them down one day. This was before the Bulge started, actually. And they shot one down, but it landed in town and did some damage, so they figured they'd quit doing that. But then I remember the first time I ever saw a contrail was there, because the Germans were shooting what they call V2 rockets, and those were strong enough. They went all the way to England. They weren't shooting them at Belgium, but Liège, Belgium took a real beating from those buzz bombs.
Joe, tell me about any combat you were around and any casualties that you remember helping.
Well, I remember that one man I told you about that had his legs blown off. I remember one young man, we were getting recruits at that time who had well, a little bit later than that, had Christmas dinner in the United States. Young guys. One guy had shot a toe off. I'm sure he'd done it himself, you know. So you couldn't blame the guy. He probably, 18 years old, I guess. But I don't remember too much of that, but there were stories of people deserting and of officers threatening to shoot them to get them to go back in. It's a hell of a thing. The infantrymen really, they have it tough. That's about as tough a job as you can have in war. But
overall, the casualties, there were a lot of them. I mean, did you see them? Were you around them? Or did you know about it? Or the Bulge had a lot of casualties.
Oh yeah, well yeah, we got some wounded Germans too that we took care of. So we had a continuous flow of all kinds of wounds. Some of them superficial enough that you could manage them up and get them back into the battle. But things got kind of blurred together.
So you probably didn't get into a lot of bad combat then, right?
No, I didn't. As far as our, we were in the 99th Infantry Division, and it was, we just went into the line in November. I don't remember, during the war, one of the commentators was a guy named Kaltenborn. Did you ever hear that name?
I might have, yeah.
He was a prominent, like Walter Cronkite became. Well, he was ahead of that time, of course. But he called the 99th Infantry the battle babies, because we were the first combat we'd been in. But when the Bulge started, one of our regiments had been detached from our division and was working with part of the, I think it was the 2nd Division, trying to take a bridge over the Roer River, which was north of us. But the 106th Division, Infantry Division, was just south of us, and they moved into the line. They didn't even have all their ammunition given out when the Bulge started, and their division headquarters was captured before they knew what was going on. They lost a lot of guys. So we were just on the edge of that main thrust. And I don't, whether they ever reconstituted that division or not. Bastogne was actually south and west of us. Yeah.
What else do you remember about at the Bulge? I mean, I've done a film on it. Talked to a lot of people that were there.
Yeah. Well, you know, I in a medical facility like I was in, I didn't see the actual hand-to-hand combat like they got into in out in those hedgerows or in the villages, you know, house to house stuff. A shell did hit our aid station, and one landed right in front of where we moved it and killed a couple of guys. But we didn't. We lost a lot of litter bearers in the Bulge. That's a real tough job. You know, we had we had Red Cross painted on our helmets, right. And they were supposed to honor that. And I think they probably did at the start of the Bulge, but later on when we got over into Germany, we had guys that were shot right through the Red Cross markings. But once we got going, then we ended up crossing the Rhine down there in Remagen on pontoon bridges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does the war seem like many years ago, or does it seem like yesterday sometimes?
Seemed like pretty far ago, pretty long ago. Yeah.
Do you think our country is forgetting about World War II?
I do.
Yeah.
I think young people are. We had a Chautauqua at Cross Archers a couple years ago, and I talked, and Joe Prinster, he saw a lot of trouble. He was an infantry soldier. Have you talked to him? Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know.
Oh, well, Joe Prinster.
Yeah, I know who he is.
His wife died maybe a year ago.
Well,
I think he lives over here at the Commons.
Is he retired then?
Oh yeah. He's not as old as I am, but he's in his late 80s.
He was in World War II?
Yeah, and he was in an infantry division.
Okay.
And he saw some real fighting. Well, they had Joe Prinster talking, and me, and a man, I forget his name, who was in the Navy. Mm-hmm. We were all in World War II. And it was the year that they had impersonators, a guy who impersonated Patton. Oh. Did you happen to hear him?
No, that was great.
He was fantastic. One who impersonated Churchill. It was all out here at Cross Archers. Yeah, and I had some statistics at that time. I don't know where I put that. It's somewhere. The casualties on both sides were something like 400,000 Allied troops, and Germany was even worse. And in the Bulge. So it was a horrible slaughter, really. It was, well, you know, there were German generals, I think, in the summer of '44 that were going to assassinate Hitler and get out of the war, and they got caught and shot. So Hitler kept things going. But
did you get around any of the concentration camps at the end of the war?
Yeah, we went. I didn't get any concentration camps. I remember we went through Schweinfurt. Okay. We didn't go to Munich. We ended up in a town called Landshut on the Inn River, and then we went down into Austria. Well, what happened when the peace was declared? What was it, 3rd of May or something like that, and 45. And we were the 99th then became part of the occupation force, okay. And our division headquarters was in Würzburg, Germany, and I was made a captain during the war, and then I was transferred as a battalion surgeon to the 13th Armored Division, and it was located down in Austria, and I went down there for that. I left the 99th, and it turned out that it was a good move. You know, it was the first armored division brought back from Europe. and we got home in July of 45. So actually I wasn't even overseas a year. But it would have been a bad one to be in because the reason we were brought back was to go to the West Coast and prepare for going to Japan. And that would have been a terrible thing all the way through. But when I was on the train going from Indianapolis, my wife had spent the war in Indiana, to the West Coast. They dropped the bombs. And so they broke up that division, and then I was assigned to a hospital in Pasadena.
Let me ask you, a lot of the veterans I talked to mentioned how cold it was. Did you have any problems with the cold weather at the Bulge?
Well, yeah, but we didn't get it like the infantrymen did. You know, they were out there just slogging through the mud, and there was a lot of snow in the. It was cold, but we were really comfortable in this house we were living in. It had, and the place where we'd set up our aid station after the first one got hit. But some of it is pretty vague, really.
That's okay.
Things.
So,
Well, you know, it's a few years ago.
yeah, yeah. Are you proud to be a World War II veteran?
Oh, yeah, I really am.
Yeah. Do people thank you for serving?
A lot.
Yeah. How does that make you feel?
Good. Yeah. Yeah, that happens frequently, almost every time I'm. Last Sunday, my youngest son and his wife have a small condo in Telluride, and they took us up there. And two people, while I was up there, came up to shake hands. And if I go downtown to parade or something, people always notice it.
Do you have a hat you wear?
Yeah, I knew World War II veteran, yeah. I went on one of the honor flights, too.
Which one? I went on two of them.
Did you?
Yeah. I wonder if I was on.
I've got it was an early one,
Yeah.
maybe the third one or so.
I might have been on that one.
Yeah. I don't remember. Paul Coe and I went, he was a good friend of mine, since died.
Well, let me ask you a couple questions here, Joe. You know, being a veteran and an American citizen, what does freedom mean to you? What does freedom or the price of freedom mean to you?
Oh, boy. It's hard to put into words, isn't it? Never having been unfortunate enough to live where you didn't have freedom, it's hard to imagine what it'd be like. But, this is where I think a lot of young people nowadays, maybe even younger than you, don't realize the magnitude or the importance of World War II. What if we lost that war? What would have happened to the United States? Hitler, there's a book called Monument Men. It's about the people in the service whose job was to try to secure paintings and stuff. And the things that they uncovered, Hitler had plans. He was going to conquer all of Europe and turn the eastern part into agriculture and the western part to industry. He was going to rule the world, build a big museum in his birthplace down there in Austria. He was crazy, But if he had, he would have, a lot of people would have lost their freedom, not just in the United States. It's hard to think of the United States ever being beaten in war, but our location is sure, having an ocean on each side, but you got enemies on the other side too. But we have more enemies on the west now than we do in the east, or enemies that like North Korea and China.
Tell me about the American flag. What does the flag mean and represent to you?
Oh, a lot, I tell you, yeah. You know, we always, in the military, you always run it up in the morning and have taps in the evening. When I was a kid in high school, I was in a drum and bugle corps, and I used to play taps at funerals, military funerals and stuff. So I've always had a high regard for the flag, and we always get our flag out on the proper days. So,
Are you concerned about our country today?
well, I'm concerned about the whole world, the way things are going. You know, I just the situation in Ukraine is could if that developed into a real open war, and it's darn near that now, I guess. I don't know. It'd be sort of like World War II, I guess. And the war between Israel and Hamas. You know, I think Israel is perfectly justified in what it's doing. But the Middle East it just seems like it's impossible to have peace in the Middle East. As long as people are so radical in their religion, the Arabs want to wipe Israel off the map. And that's ridiculous. So I worry about it all the time, or think about it. Of course, I'm as old as I am. I don't know how much longer I'll be around, but I worry about it. I've got, all my grandkids they're getting, the oldest grandkid boy, I guess, is 30, but then I've got 8 great-grandsons, little guys. The oldest one of them is 12, and then I have a little step family on Bunny's side. So I have a lot of people who would be impacted by a war.
Well, what do you want your family to remember about you someday when you're gone?
Oh gosh. What would I say?
You're a good guy?
Yeah. Well, I've always been fond of kids. Right now, I'm really enjoying a 1-year-old step great-grandson who lives here, and I'm getting a real kick out of him. But I don't know. I just I've never been real tough on kids. Yeah. Beating kids or slapping them or thing like that. Yeah. I was raised by a single mom and her father, and my grandmother died when I was about 4, I guess. But I never met my dad till he came to my high school graduation. So that I had a kind of a different upbringing. My mother taught school, and but my grandfather lived to be 88. I think he's the one reason I'm living as long as I am. He was a great old guy. He'd been hardworking, ended up owning a fair amount of farmland in Illinois. And he had, in his younger days, he had what they called a huckster route. He would take horses in a wagon. He'd go around, get cream and butter and farm produce and eggs, and then take it into Terre Haute, Indiana, about 20 miles away, and get cloth and needles, thread, kerosene, stuff that they needed as a kind of a traveling grocery store, I guess, called a huckster deal.
A couple more things, we'll be done with the interview part. You were with the 1st Army, 99th Infantry Regiment?
99th Infantry Division.
Okay, 1st Army, 99th Infantry Division. Is that part of the 3rd Army? No, that's the 1st Army, right?
It was part of the 1st Army, yeah.
Okay, so, but you're with the 99th.
99th Infantry. I think most of the enlisted men, I think, were from the Pennsylvania National Guard. Our general was a guy named Lauer. I wrote a note to Matt Lauer some years ago and told him that, and I got back just a form postcard he never said, but I wondered if he was related. And we had a colonel in charge of, they call it a medical battalion, and he was a Colonel Beckjord, I remember him, Scandinavian. But then I finished up my time at the Pasadena Regional Hospital in Pasadena, and that was the summer of 45 and 46. Then when I came back to Midwest, I started my surgical residency up at Mayo in June of 46.
So what were you with a company, 99th Infantry? You know how they break it down, Army, Division, Company, Regiment, Platoon. I mean,
Yeah, it's called a collecting company.
Okay.
As I remember, it was part of all of the medical stuff was in part of this what they call medical battalion, and it had a number. Seemed to me like it was 320 medical battalion, and then it was broken down into these battalion, aid station, collecting company, and clearing company. Yeah.
One more time. You served with the 99th Infantry from what month and year to what month and year again?
From September of 46, no, September of 44 until latter part of May of 45.
And then
And then I was transferred to the 13th Armored Division and came home. As I said, it was the first Armored Division brought home.
Where were you on Christmas of 44?
Oh, sleeping in a barn, in a dairy barn in Belgium. I remember that. I thought that was something, sleeping in a barn on Christmas Eve. Yeah, the battle was really raging then. We were getting casualties from the air. I remember down planes. But the weather had begun to clear up. We started getting a lot more planes in. But it was a pretty fluid situation after that. And then when the tide really turned, we started going into Germany and moving pretty fast. But the roads were littered with blown up tanks and bodies along the road. Never forget somebody that gets a morbid sense of humor, if you want to call it. Came to this one fork in the road, and then here was a German soldier sitting up there, red-headed, I remember, holding a gun. He got up to him, and he was dead. And somebody had propped him up. So that, But I remember another interesting thing. One of our battalion surgeons was located, as I say, they were mostly trying to take out those pill boxes. I'll tell you, have you ever talked to Jim Dunn? Dr. Jim Dunn?
Not Dr. Dunn. I've interviewed a Jim Dunn, but not Dr. Dunn.
Well, he was wounded. He was in the 2nd Infantry Division. He was just out of high school.
Is he here?
From Cortez. Yeah, he's still living here. He lives at the Atrium.
Well, you need to put me in touch with him and Prinster. I don't know if that's something you would do or I would just...
Well, I'm not a special friend of Joe Prinster, but you don't need any. You can just tell him that I told you
He
that.
lives at the Commons.
I'm pretty sure he does.
And yeah, Jim Dunn's at the Atrium.
Jim Dunn and his wife are at the Atrium.
I'll look him up.
He's on oxygen all the time. And he was wounded in the foot. But he told about sneaking up on these pill boxes and throwing grenades in the windows. And how he was with the 2nd Infantry Division. They saw a a lot of casualties. But as I was saying, they had this one aid station that the road, the only way you get to it was a road that was parallel to the front line, and then you came to an intersection, and you'd go east into Germany or come west back into Belgium, and right near the start of the Bulge, the aid station was full of injured people, and the doctor there got the ambulance filled up and sent them back that way, the other way they could go. And the Germans had a machine gun set up there, and they let them go. They could have killed them. So not all Germans were bad, you know. As a kid growing up, you know, World War II was, I was kind of brought up with the idea that all Germans were bad. Because I was born in 18. I was born just about a month or two before the armistice. Armistice is November of 1918. Yeah, but I thought that was kind of unusual.
One more time, Joe. You mentioned some more casualties there. Do you remember any more that you might have taken care of? I mean, did you do any triaging? Were there any flesh wounds or
Well, of course,
or?
triaging was really kind of what was our main job, you know, to decide what we could fix up and send back into combat or what we could try to keep alive to get them on back. I remember when the Bulge was ending and we were advancing into Germany, crossing the Rhine there, we crossed on a pontoon bridge, and we were over on the east side when the bridge collapsed. But we had a sizable number of people over by then. But I remember they brought in a big strapping blonde German in a wetsuit who was floating down the Rhine, planning to blow up some of the pontoon bridges, but they got him. He was wounded and brought in, but he didn't do much to save him.
So
I don't know.
You never had to be right on the front lines, patching them all up real quick and all that stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they call meatball surgery or whatever, you know, you never had to do that.
yeah, we didn't do any, you know, fancy surgery of any kind.
Yeah.
We weren't really set up to do that. So our job was really just a triage job practically, and to do what we could for the ones that had a minor injury.
Is Veterans Day special to you?
Yeah, it is.
You think it's important that our kids learn about World War II?
Yeah, I think so. I sure do. I think people don't learn from history. They have to, well, they say repeat it. Yeah.
Can at the end of my interviews, I always have the veteran do a salute into the camera. Can we do that? But I need where's your hat at?
Oh, and that, okay.
Tell me when you're ready. Are you comfortable there?
Okay, yeah.
Go for it. Okay, that's good. Now stay there. I'm going to take a picture. I wanted to first thank you for the interview and shake your hand on camera and thank you for your service to our country.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. I know a lot of other people appreciate it, and it's because of you we're here today. You know,
Thank you.
You were there yesterday, and that's why we're here today, and that's how I look at it. And when I put my flag out at my home, my mind always reflects back to that greatest generation, the World War II
Right.
veterans. And 95 years old, that's pretty good.
Right.
I'm catching up with you too.
Good. Hope you make it.